Today we are wrapping up our final pick versus player series of the year with the 106 through the 112. Again, a lot of people still haven't done their rookie drafts, believe it or not, although we have, and although we wanted to do it right away, there are still some people that haven't. So we're doing this for you. You're welcome. We're going to go through the 107 through the 112. We did the 106 on last week. So 107 through 112. Now you've got the accurate information. Speaking of accurate information, we're trying to bring that to you every time we get behind this camera. So you know what to do. Show some support. Drop a like on this video and make sure you're subscribed as well. We're coming out with Dynasty research and analysis all off-season long, and we'd appreciate it if you join the DD community. We're trying to get to 5K before opening day. So we're going to do it. I know we're going to do it. And today, in honor of trying to get there, we are going to finish off our pick versus player series. And again, we're starting at the 107. So last week we did the 101 through the 106. And if you haven't watched that video, make sure you go do that. If you have 2023 picks still, we are talking about guys that you should potentially be targeting if you're looking to move those for certain players. And when you're talking about this 107 through 112 range, this is where it gets really, really interesting, actually.
Yeah, big teardrop.
Because there was a huge teardrop this year after the 106. So when you're talking about the 107, you're probably getting one of those. This is usually the tier for me where I'm taking one of Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers, or Jordan Addison.
Yep.
So if we're taking the 107, let's talk about the 107 or Daniel Jones. Which one are you taking there?
I'm taking Daniel Jones. Personally, it's a super flex league.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people that are going to argue with that, especially from a Quentin Johnston standpoint. But Daniel Jones, when you look at what he did last year, he finished as a quarterback 1. He's playing in an improved offense. He
finally has some wide receivers.
He has some wide receiver help, just a little bit of it. But he also has the contract. And so when you're talking about Dynasty and you're talking about 3-year windows, which is typically what people reference when they're talking about, how we're playing Dynasty and how we're, projecting players. You talk about the 3-year window. Daniel Jones has a good 3-year window now because he is on a 4-year deal. And even if they have an out his last year, he's probably going to be there for the next 3 years and he's probably going to be starting. I mean, if you look at what he did last year, obviously from an efficiency standpoint, he didn't put up groundbreaking numbers by any means, but he was winning them games, and because he's winning them games, he's going to be on the field. And the one thing about when he is on the field is he's got a ton of rushing upside, and as a quarterback in a Superflex league, that's a huge attribute.
Yeah, he had 18 points per game, and while he threw less than a touchdown per game that he played, he also didn't really throw interceptions, so I believe Daniel Jones will stay on the field for the majority of his contract. At least at this point in time, the Giants don't really have another option. They have a good coach, and with Daniel Jones, they're winning, and they'll keep on doing that. So
I like this one right here. We're going to talk about Josh Jacobs or the 107. Who are you taking here?
Oh, man, this is kind of putting me in a dilemma of wide receiver on one hand, a young wide receiver who I expect to gain in value, or Josh Jacobs, who will be the focal point of his offense for another year. And I think in this case, I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs. So
he's tagged right now, right?
Yes.
But he's not on his second contract.
Correct.
So similar to Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs is a guy that is probably going to get a long-term deal. I would imagine it's going to be in Vegas. I don't see him going anywhere after next year. I think they will pay him.
I don't know why he would.
I
don't
don't
seem to be in his best interest.
Maybe not, but for right now, what you do know, and again, this is the same as Saquon Barkley, I'm going to go Josh Jacobs as well for this reason. When Josh Jacobs either re-signs his deal next year or signs with a new team, his value is going to go back up to at least where it is now. So while normally you look at these running backs, he's 24, so really the drop-off's coming from the age 26 to 27 season, as we talked about last week. And so when you look at him now, he's probably not going to lose a ton of value. You have quite a few 25. I mean, Najee's going to be a 25-year-old running back, or he already is, I think. And, he's going, there. So
I think Josh Jacobs and Najee are about the same age.
I think they're only like a couple months apart. So
and they have similar usage because Josh Jacobs in college wasn't used that heavily, and so far through his NFL career, before last year, he really hadn't been used heavily either.
Yeah. So if you have the 107, you can get Josh Jacobs for it. That's something that we're doing. He's scoring. Obviously, last year he was a running back 1, in
19 points per game.
Guys, don't forget. Although it's fun to have the young wide receivers in Dynasty, scoring points and winning money is the ultimate goal, and Josh Jacobs helps you do that. So, yeah, we'll both take Josh Jacobs there. All right, the 107 or Devontae Adams?
Devontae Adams. And I know I said that quickly, but it's because I already had to think about it in a trade. I made exactly that trade earlier this year.
I want your justification for that.
I had the 107. I had made the playoffs that year. I really just thought I had had a bad week. My first year of the playoffs, I still had a good team, and if I'm sending off my first-round pick for Devontae Adams, who had scored, I don't know, I don't know what he scored last year. Probably still close to 20 points per game.
He was still very good.
Very good. One of the most efficient wide receivers in the league. So look at his yards per route run, yards per team's pass attempt, and even his target share. I believe he was over 30% target share last year.
He was the wide receiver 3. He had 19.7 points per game.
So they're really, if we're talking the same thing, Devontae Adams, who I believe in a 3-year window will still continue to produce. Look at DeAndre Hopkins, a year and a half older, almost 2 years older, still continuing to produce. I believe Devontae Adams will still do that. And if we're talking him versus Quentin Johnston, who will probably put somewhere between 9 and 12 points per game, that's a pretty easy choice for me.
I'll take Devontae Adams too. I think a lot of people overestimate how quickly wide receivers fall off once they get to 30 years old. There's been a pretty good track record. I think we need to do a video on this anyways, but there's been, and because Nathan will sit here and argue with me about it all day long, but there's a pretty good track record of wide receivers after they turn 30 years old producing for 3 years or more. I mean, although there have been some instances recently, like with Julio Jones, which is Nathan's like go-to argument for that one. I love how I'm arguing with him. He's not even here. That is pretty classic.
Yes.
But like Julio, I mean, does it always happen? No, I would say there's probably a fair amount of both. But these elite wide receivers, the really, really good ones, a lot of them will go on to produce until they're 34 years old. Like actually produce.
I mean, Devontae Adams had a 32.6% target share last year. He was targeted 30% of the time when he was running a route, and he had the 4th highest yards per team pass attempt in the league last year. So he's not just going to go from being one of the best. He had the highest target share, so the most utilized wide receiver in the league, and one of the most efficient wide receivers in the league, to just not being used in 1 year or even 2, 3 maybe by then. But yeah, we're agreeing here.
And when you look at Tyreek Hill, I mean, Tyreek Hill is another guy that you have 3 years left on because he said he's going to retire. So both of these guys have around the same window. They're scoring around the same amount of points. So why shouldn't they be valued? I mean, I'm taking Tyreek Hill over the 107 all day. Why would you not be taking Devontae Adams as well? So I think I'm taking Devontae Adams there. And so again, 3 guys you can move the 107 for: Daniel Jones, Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams. And look, if you're a rebuild, you're probably only taking Daniel Jones there. But I mean, and like I said, case by case basis, but in a vacuum, that's who we're taking. We're going to go to the 108 now, and we're going to talk about the 108 or Ramondre Stevenson. And for me personally, if I have my choice between what's left of QJ and Addison and Zay Flowers over Ramondre Stevenson, I will take the pick.
See, I've never been a Ramondre fan, but he had 15 points per game last year. I think it was 14.7.
Very efficient last year.
And I think he kind of left a sour taste in everyone's mouth. It's like the opposite Cam Akers effect, where Cam Akers finished the year strong, Ramondre did not. Ramondre had a rough end of the season when Damian Harris came back. But if you look at his efficiency through the year, he was 6th in yards created per touch. He was 3rd in juke rate, and he also had 5.2 yards per touch. So in general, whenever Ramondre gets the ball in his hand, he is incredibly efficient. You've shown that Bill Belichick, even the way he is with his running back committees in New England, has been willing to put the load on Ramondre Stevenson. They did not go out and they did not draft another running back in this last year's draft. And so, again, I'm going to say if I have the 108 last year, if it's my own pick, I was competing last year, I had a good team, I'll go ahead and take Ramondre Stevenson and hope he gives me another 15 to 18 point per game season.
Yeah, and so for me, my standpoint from this is going to be, I think the 15 points per game season was a little bit of an outlier for Ramondre. And while I think I think when you watch him, it's pretty clear that he's the most versatile and talented back in that backfield. The problem is he's in New England, and while a lot of people will say, well, that's not a good enough reason to fade him, actually, sometimes it is, because Bill Belichick will play anybody. And
Damian Harris was a running back.
Damian Harris, everybody said he was going to get cut last year, and he came back and actually took away snaps from Ramondre. Yes. And while I'm not going to use that as my projection as to why I don't think Ramondre is going to repeat, unless we're talking, Ramondre's already 25. So unless we're talking about Ramondre, balling out the next 2 years and getting a big second contract, which I'm not exactly sure is going to happen, I'm going to bet on him scoring between 11 and 14 points per game, which that's as high as almost he was last year, or maybe a little bit of a step back. And when I'm looking at Jordan Addison, especially, and who I think would be available here, Quentin Johnston's usually been the first guy off the board here. When I'm looking at Jordan Addison, I think he is a guy that can put up 12 points per game this year.
Yeah.
So, and then you look at their values. I mean, their values are going to go in opposite directions if that does happen. If Jordan Addison scores 12 points per game this year, you're looking at getting him in the 4th round next year.
Ramondre does the same thing. You're going to be really glad you took Jordan Addison. Exactly. And that's fair.
So that also can be a little bit team dependent. I'll take the pick. We're split on that one, so there you go. That's going to be up to you. The next one's going to be Austin Eckler or the 108. And this is tough. there are a lot of people that are taking the side of this argument that Kellen Moore is not going to be good for Austin Eckler. And obviously you saw Austin Eckler requested a trade out of Los Angeles. And so while that was there, he is going to be there this year, and he does have some new incentives in his contract. So he's going to be there, and he has a lot of reason to play well again. Will it? I don't know about the Kellen Moore argument. I mean, you look at Kellen Moore, look at the Cowboys before and after Kellen Moore. I mean, we don't know about after yet, but Mike McCarthy. I mean, I don't think the Cowboys. A lot of people said that the Cowboys are going to give Tony Pollard more work now. I don't see that. I think they used Tony Pollard a fair amount last year. I mean, Tony Pollard was not even technically the running back one in that offense for most of the year. He scored 15 points per game. I think almost 16 points per game. And when you're looking at what Austin Eckler did, I mean, he scored, I think, 20 or 21 points per game.
21.9.
So 22 points per game. Do I think he's going to score 22 points a game again? Probably not. But do I think he can score upwards of 18? Absolutely. The age is probably going to be the biggest thing for Eckler. If long-term there's not a ton of security.
If he gets hurt this year, it's a death sentence.
For that reason, I will take with the 108. Oh, that's really hard. Do I want to take the 108? Tell me in the comments if I should take the 108 or Austin Eckler. I'm really curious. I want to know what you're going to say then.
I'm taking Austin Eckler, and it's for the same reason. If I was competing last year, I'm going to compete again this year in a majority of cases. Austin Eckler, even on just a 61.9% snap share last year, gave us 22 fantasy points per game. The Chargers did not go out. They did not draft, just like the Patriots, they did not draft a replacement at running back. At least not anyone that I know that's relevant enough for me to have them in my mind right now. He ran 1.75 yards per route run. So he's putting out like decent wide receiver numbers in the receiving game. He had 128 targets last year. They are not just going to stop using Austin Eckler in the run game. He also had 915 rushing yards. He had 4.2 true yards per carry, which is not great, but Austin Eckler had 5.3 yards per touches and 3.9 yards created per touch. So the guy, when he gets the ball in his hand, doesn't matter if you put him in a bad situation, he's making things happen even at his age, and I don't expect him to just fall off. Austin Eckler is an outlier in almost all areas. He was an undrafted free agent coming into the NFL. He's a smaller guy, and he's going to continue to produce. That's my opinion.
I'm changing my answer. I want Austin Eckler. I guess that's another team-dependent one, though, because, I mean, if I'm a rebuild, I'm keeping the 108 there. Nathan would flip if he had heard me say that. Like
But why? Because what if Austin Eckler comes into next season and he's giving everyone 19 points per game, and mid-season everyone's like, oh, he's worth a lot more than a single first right now, because he's going to push me over the edge and I might win that championship.
If you're contending and you can get Austin Eckler for the 108, I'm definitely doing that. If you're not, though, I can see why you would want to take Jordan Addison. All right, Najee Harris to the 108. I'll easily take Najee here.
I will too. I don't even need to go over why.
No, I think Najee's a buy. I think Najee is going to be more productive than he was last year. You saw after he kind of got past that injury that happened early in training camp last year, he started to look more like himself. I think he's going to have plenty of usage. I think Kenny Pickett. So I think Najee will get a ton of work. Let's go to the 109. You taking the 109 or Jordan Love? So that's going to be the last of these three wide receivers or Jordan Love.
Yeah, I'm taking the 109. I'm not a Jordan Love believer.
I'm not either. I don't have Nathan here to.
And I know people are going to say, "Oh, he's the next Aaron Rodgers. He's the next Brett Favre." Look at the Packers' legacy of quarterbacks.
He looked super duper good in that one game he played.
Yeah, so did Zach Wilson. No, he didn't. Like random games, and I know like Jordan Love's not Zach Wilson. I'm just making fun of the situation.
He could be Zach Wilson.
I don't believe it. If I can get any first for Jordan Love right now, I'm doing it. It's really simple as that.
I'll take the 109. Jahan Dotson or the 109. I will take one of these three receivers over Jahan Dotson. I think
I will too.
The 109 or J.K. Dobbins. I'm interested to hear yours on this because you think J.K. is a buy. I'm not so sure if he's a buy, so you go first.
I do like J.K. Dobbins. I think he's a buy, but he's in his fourth year in the NFL. He has yet to prove anything. I think just like we saw with Josh Jacobs last year, his usage is going to go up, and he will produce more. But what if he gets hurt again? So I will take the 109. I'll take the insulated value of a rookie wide receiver over the running back that has yet to do anything in his career. With all these other running backs, we've listed off what they've done, how efficient they are, and how they've created things so far in their career, and JK just has not. So
exactly. I'm taking the pick there as well. Let's move to the 110. Are you taking George Kittle or the 110? Yeah, I'm taking George Kittle as well. He's talking about an elite tight end that won you leagues last year. He's not going anywhere. He's going to be no matter who's starting there at quarterback, he is going to get work next year. Trey Lance, if it's Trey Lance, which I think a lot of you are not acknowledging that it probably could be Trey Lance actually, Trey Lance is going to use George Kittle. I mean, and I think Brock Purdy, if it's Brock Purdy, you saw what he did with Kittle last year, but especially with Trey Lance, although you haven't seen those two develop a connection just yet, I think George Kittle is going to continue to produce at a rate in tight end premium leagues, which is going to help you win your leagues. So I'm taking George Kittle.
George Kittle is one of the best receiving tight ends we've ever seen. In 2019, George Kittle had a 40% target rate, 39.1. He had 3.84 yards per route run. The problem right now is not George Kittle being bad. It was just they needed to use him elsewhere in their offense. His snap rate, George Kittle is almost always on the field, and that means he's used as a blocker quite often. But he's incredibly efficient when he is targeted. End of story. George Kittle.
Kenny Pickett or the 110?
I'll take Kenny Pickett.
Do I think Kenny Pickett's better than Will Levis? No. I don't think I do. And I don't think Will Levis is that good. I'm just not a Kenny Pickett believer, so I'll take the opposite side of this. The reason I will take the 110 is because I think Will Levis is going to start in Tennessee. So I think personally I'd just rather take my shot. This might be a personal thing. Like the other guys you're maybe getting here are Dalton Kincaid. If one of the three receivers fell, I guess you could get one of them. Zach Charbonnet potentially, which if it's those guys, I'm taking Kenny Pickett. But because, I'm either getting Will Levis or one of the three receivers, like there is a 10th guy here that I would take over Kenny Pickett.
If someone had pushed someone else up, I would take one of the three receivers over Kenny Pickett. But if we're talking just Kenny Pickett versus Will Levis, I think Kenny Pickett already has a team that's willing to build around him, and they've shown that. The Titans don't really seem to have a clear plan in mind right now.
The problem with Kenny Pickett, I think he only averaged 12 fantasy points a game last year. I'm not sure how high his fantasy upside is. With Will Levis, you at least have a little bit of rushing upside. Maybe. I mean, Will Levis also just has to start and be decent, and we don't know if that's going to happen. So I think those two guys, what?
No, you're fine.
I think those two guys are in the same tier for me. I think I have them very close to my rankings. I might have Kenny Pickett above, and I guess I would need to move that around if that were the case. But I'll take the pick there. It's close. I could see in a Superflex league why you just go ahead and want to roll with Kenny Pickett. So, all right, 110 or Jameson Williams?
I'll take the 110.
Yep, pretty easily, actually. No explanation needed for
well,
that.
I think we should because Jameson Williams he has a lot of stands. Jameson Williams, by the time he's getting meaningful snaps on an NFL field,
we'll be betting again.
He'll be a year and a half into his career. And so that means people are going to come out and expect him right away to produce. That is when I will be buying Jameson Williams because just like every other rookie wide receiver, it takes some time to adjust to NFL game speed, and he will not have had snaps to do that with. I think his value will drop significantly over the first 3 or 4 games that he plays in the NFL come midseason, and that's when I'll buy him, not now.
And it doesn't matter what Dan Campbell says about him being on another, it doesn't matter, guys. Don't read into the sleeper alerts that he's on a new level. I don't even know what it said, but it was something that I saw.
I didn't read it.
Oh man, the Jameson Williams stands are going to be out tonight. All right, let's move to the 111. Geno Smith or the 111. I'll start with this one. I'm taking Geno. He's on a 4-year deal. You saw him produce as a quarterback 1 last year. He's got some of the best weapons, if not the best weapons in the league, given the contract security, given the fantasy production that he proved last year, given the situation, the coaching, everything. I'll take Geno Smith in a Superflex league extremely easily there.
Enough said. I agree.
Cool.
Geno Smith.
Marquise Brown or the 111. So this one's interesting because we are recording post DeAndre Hopkins news where he has been released, leaving Marquise Brown to be the wide receiver 1 in Arizona. And if Nathan were here, he'd be like, Marquise Brown. And I do think there is...
Oh, congratulations on getting married.
And Nathan is not here because he's on his honeymoon. So drop a congrats, Nathan, in the comments. But back to slandering him. If he were here, he would say, Marquise Brown. I feel like, do you have to think about this one? Or are you taking Marquise Brown all day as well?
No, I'm not a Marquise Brown fan.
I'm like in the middle with Marquise Brown now. I'm not gonna sit here and toot his horn because if anything, last year was the year he was supposed to do it. And to Nathan's point, again, I'm arguing with him he's in Mexico, but to Nathan's point, when you look at the games that he played without DeAndre Hopkins last year, his targets were ridiculous. When you look at the players going at the 111, again, you probably got Will Levis, Devon Achane, who shouldn't be going there, by the way, but Zach Charbonnet, Dalton Kincaid. I'm going to take Marquise Brown over those guys. I say all of that. I'm not fully convinced I would pay more than this for Marquise Brown, but that said, at the 111, after this year's teardrop, I will go ahead and take Marquise Brown. And I'm going to do the next one as well. I will also take Amari Cooper over the 111 playing in the Browns offense with Deshaun Watson. He's not slowing down either. He's got a pretty good 3-year window ahead of him. I'll take him as well. I'll let you do those two now.
I'll take the 111 over Marquise Brown.
Who are you targeting there? So you're taking.
I'll take Kincaid or Charbonnet or Levis over him. I've not been impressed with Marquise Brown. I liked him when he was on the Ravens, and I kept expecting him to break out. He had flashes. Last year, he had 1.57 yards per route run. That's not good. He has had one season averaging over 14 points per game, and to do that, he had to have so much volume. He had to run 32 routes per game, and he had a 26% target share with a 27% target rate. Yes, he's going to have an opportunity to do that again next year, but I don't believe in his talent long term. I think he's going to be someone who's going to produce when he has the volume, but he is not equipped to be an alpha wide receiver in the NFL. And I believe in all three of those guys more to have higher value long term. When it comes to Amari Cooper, I will take Amari Cooper. I think Deshaun Watson will return to form. Look what he did with Will Fuller back in 2019. Will Fuller was a wide receiver who did average over 14 points per game, and Amari Cooper has done that time and time again throughout his career. He's incredibly talented, and I think he's going to give you 16, 17, 18 points per game next year, now, if I'm not being too lofty.
I will say, if you can get a 24 first for Marquise Brown, I'm definitely doing that, especially after this news. It's just knowing it's this year's 111 is what I can't.
Yeah, that's fair.
112. Let's wrap this up till next year. Derek Carr, the 112, starting quarterback, got a new contract. He's got a good wide receiver in Chris Olave or the 112. I'll take Derek Carr in a Superflex league.
I'm taking the 112. Derek Carr had the best wide receiver in the league last year, and he still sucked. That being Devontae Adams. His situation is not getting any better at all in New Orleans. So
yeah, he's at least startable in a Superflex league, though.
Yes.
And at the 112, I mean, you're getting the last of Charbonnet and Kincaid, probably.
I know, but if I have Derek Carr as my QB2, if I'm having to start Derek Carr at all, I'm not confident that I'm contending. So I'm not.
I don't know. I'm starting Aaron Rodgers in contending leagues. I'm stripping a lot of my.
Aaron Rodgers has shown recently that he can score 20 points per game.
Was Derek Carr that bad from a points per game perspective last year?
I don't know. I would have thought he had 14 points per game last year.
He had 16 points per game, 15 and a half. So
yeah, not good.
I mean, he is what he is.
He had Devontae Adams.
I know.
He had Josh Jacobs on the same team. Like they had a good offense. They had the best running back in the league last year and the best wide receiver in the league.
Yeah, that's close.
You're fine. Take your guy.
No. I feel like if you need a second quarterback, you're taking Derek Carr over the 112.
Yes, if you need a second quarterback.
Because if you won the league and you don't have a quarterback, say you won the league and your quarterback's Tom Brady and you have your pick, I think I'd move.
I'm aiming higher. I'm going for. I think someone might sell you Russell Wilson for the 112 if they're dumb. There's people who are really down on Russ.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you can name higher than that, but. In a Superflex league, sometimes people get stingy.
I think you could get Derek Carr for mid-second in some leagues.
Well, if you can, then obviously get him cheaper. But
yeah,
I mean, I would pay him.
I know.
That would mean that he's a good value. I think if you're getting him for a mid-second, which I do think he's actually a good value. But Aaron Jones at the 112, I'll take the 112 here. I would take Charbonnet. I would take Kincaid. I would take Levis.
Yeah, I would too.
We're through 12 guys.
I'm with you.
Mike Williams are the 112. Oh wow, this is gonna hurt. I'm gonna take. Go first.
I'm taking the 112.
I can't.
I've not been a Mike Williams believer. He's not been able over the last 2 years. He has not been injury prone, but he's not been consistently on the field, and he's not been consistently producing when he is on the field. He's very hit or miss. I think Keenan Allen is obviously better, and now they have Quentin Johnston out of that offense, along with Austin Eckler getting 128 targets in a season. I don't think Mike Williams is it.
Oh, this one's really tough.
I'll gladly take a reroll with a new first while I can. Mike Williams had 18% target share last year. Yeah. That's not great by any means.
Oh, my gosh. I can't do this one. I'll take the 112. Daggone it, that hurts. Mike Williams, you can probably get him for an early mid-second, which you should. Yes. But if you got a first, I can see why you'd want to take the first. I'll take the first. All right, that wraps up pick versus player for 2023. We hope you enjoyed it. We got a lot of good feedback on these videos, so we're going to definitely be doing this next year. We'll definitely do some in-season ones as well. I mean, there are going to be people who are thinking about trading their 24 picks, and so we're going to do early, mid, late, and we're going to tell you which contending assets you should maybe be moving towards in the season. So we'll bring this back here in 5 or 6 months, and then we'll bring it back for next year as well. But we really appreciate you watching, and we appreciate you supporting us. Make sure you like this video and show some support and subscribe, because we're trying to get to 5K before opening day. And again, that's somewhere in September, and I've done the math, and that's a pretty lofty goal that we set.
Yeah.
I did the math like by day. I was like, oh. But we can do it if you hit subscribe right now, so make sure you do that for us as well. As always, we appreciate you guys watching. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you later.